For those of you that might be involved in local governments, you know that for years, the way local government budgets were done was that you took what you spent last year and you added a percentage to it, and that's what your budget was for next year. And that was just the way you went in and presented your budget. But the latest trend is to go to zero-based budgeting, and that is where you go in and your budget is zero. And you justify every expenditure, and that way you look at your priorities and figure out what is important, what do you need money for, and that sort of thing. What would happen if we took that approach when it came to the protection or redaction of child records within Georgia? So, for instance, if you assumed that everything was public, that everything was available to be dispersed, and then looked at it in a systematic approach of, just like our state does, what are the things I have to do? What rules and laws are out there, what statutes are out there that says these things have to be redacted, have to be protected, can't be dispersed? What if you took that approach and then looked at it after you had determined what had to be redacted by the rules, looked at it, are there other things that should be because of privacy for the child? Or are there things that are being redacted that shouldn't be? It doesn't make sense. And if so, do we need to enact some type of policy change to address that issue? But I think that that's important for us to approach it in that way and to look at why we do the things we do instead of relying on this is the way we've always done it. You know, I served in the military, and for while I was in active duty, whenever we would have a training mission, we would always come back and do an after-action review. And that was something that happened immediately. I mean, it didn't matter if you've been out for 3 days, hadn't had a shower, or freezing to death, covered in mud, before you did anything, before you made a phone call, before you took a shower, before you got anything to eat. They gathered up all the soldiers, and you had an after-action review to determine what you've done right and what you've done wrong. I think that this forum is a place for us to do that in a larger sense, but perhaps we need to explore whether that's the kind of thing that needs to be done on a smaller sense whenever we have a major issue that comes up with one of the children that we're dealing with. Perhaps we need to have an after-action review. And you know, when we do that, that involves more than just the people that are involved directly in the program. You know, that's why we need the help of outsiders, the press and other folks, to give a fresh eye about what needs to be done. So it's something we need to keep in mind. As I said, one of the things that I think we also can take away from reevaluating how we do things is that we hopefully can also find some efficiencies in what we do. And the whole reason I think I got roped into this was because I told Michelle the story. And I think that's why she said, oh, well, we're going to get you to come open this conference. And I was telling her about my experience as a Superior Court judge dealing with child victim cases. Now, you have to understand, we hear lots of felonies, and lots of them involve children who've been abused or either physical abuse or sexual abuse, that sort of thing. And invariably what happens is, whenever you get a case that involves a child, the defense attorney is going to subpoena the defects records. And there's a process that they're supposed to follow where they request a hearing and then they subpoena the records and all that kind of stuff. I have to say, invariably, they don't follow that rule, but regardless, at the end of the day, what happens is you end up in court and you have a SAG who is there in court with you. A lot of times you have a defects worker that's waiting outside in the hallway because they've been subpoenaed as well, and they want to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. And they wait. And let me tell you this before I say more. I have the best SAGs in the state. All right, I'm in the Northeastern Circuit, and no disrespect to anybody else that's here that might be a SAG, but I have the best SAGs in the state. I mean, they're some of the best lawyers around. They work hard, and they do a great job. But what happens is those great lawyers end up getting stuck. They show up on Monday morning of the trial week because the defense attorney has sent a subpoena for a defects worker and a subpoena for production of documents for the entire defects file for the child that's the victim and any other children in the family, that kind of thing. And so they wait because there's pandemonium on Monday morning trying to get a jury started. And eventually we end up having to have a hearing about the motion to quash that the defects attorney, SAG attorney, has filed on that subpoena. And they file this huge book, like 60-page brief, motion and brief. And my SAGs will get up and they'll say, Judge, we're here, we filed a motion to quash. As you know, there are confidentiality rules that say that this information's privileged and that sort of thing. But they know the way it works because a defendant who's facing the possibility of going to jail because of accusations that they did something to a child, their right to have any exculpatory evidence overrides any privilege or confidentiality the child may have. And so invariably the SAG will get up and make their argument, the other sides will get up and fumble around, and then the SAG will say, and Judge, I've got the defects file right here, and an order for you to sign because I know what's going to happen. You're going to say I have to do an in-camera inspection of this file. And so I've got the order and I've got the file here, and I'll have my caseworker on call if you need her, but can she go back to work? Or he go back to work? It always ends up that I have to get the file, I'll look at the file. Most of the time I give very little over to the defense because most of the time it's not relevant. But sometimes there are a few things that are relevant that have to turn over. Meanwhile, the state has spent, no telling how much, paying for the SAG attorney to sit in my courtroom waiting to argue this canned brief that they have, and having to go through killing several trees, filing that motion and serving it on everybody, all that kind of stuff. That surely there's a way we can become more efficient in dealing with that. It would be something that I would encourage this panel to talk about. It may not be exactly on topic, but it is something that we can address. There's got to be a better way to do that. In my circuit, the public defender's office was created, and when they started, they used to file a book of motions. And finally, I was the DA at the time, we got together with the PD and said, look, you're killing trees, and the clerk's office is working, having to scan all this stuff in. And so we got together and agreed that they would file that motion once, and we would keep it in the clerk's office. And every case after that, they filed one piece of paper that says, all that stuff's in the clerk's office, I'm filing in this case. And it took the DA and the PD talking together and getting the approval of the judges to follow that procedure to make it efficient for everybody. We saved time for the clerk, for the judge, for the administrative staff in both offices, and we saved a whole lot of money on copying and paper and everything else for the county. That's the kind of thing I think we can achieve through collaboration, not only protecting our children, not only answering to the public, but achieving some efficiencies as well. Now, I'm going to turn the podium over to somebody else here in just a moment. I just want to encourage you to take advantage of this conference. You're here. There are some great opportunities for you here today. I'd encourage you to listen, to share, and to collaborate, and most of all, to be respectful. It's difficult to turn around and reevaluate how you do things. It's difficult to take criticism and to change your behavior. And so everyone should be respectful. We all have something to learn here today. I'm thankful that we have some of the folks that are here that are in charge of these different agencies that can put in their 2 cents worth and are willing to reevaluate where they are. And I just ask that you be respectful of their position, that they have a job to do as well. Listen, together we can change the way things are done. We can make it more efficient. We can protect Georgia's children. And we can show the citizens of the state that we're being accountable, that we are doing a good job. And I hope that you will find some of those answers, or at least start on the trail to those answers.